Hiya folks. The world is changing so quickly, everything is changing. And one of the growth areas is smart cities. It's the big growth for businesses. So today I'm going to introduce you to Smart DCU and talk about its role in smart cities. So if you ask yourselves the question, what is Smart DCU? Well, Smart DCU is part of an ecosystem. My colleague Alan talked about this before. The 4 local authorities in Dublin got together and decided to collaborate and leverage technology that could benefit people who live, work or visit the city. So under this initiative is a new series of smart districts. You may know about smart docklands located in the city centre, around by where Google is. That's a thriving testbed for smart city propositions at the moment. There's also coming very soon the Smart DCU, the Smart Sandyford business area. That's a business area in the south side. But I want to talk to you about Smart DCU. Now, we actually have 2 test beds for smart city propositions. The first would be Croke Park Smart Stadium. Now, Croke Park Smart Stadium is somewhere you can stress test smart city propositions. You've got the ebb and flow of 83,000 people coming and going from events, not just sporting events, also entertainment events. And the second would be the DCU campus as well, this campus we're in at the moment. So this campus is going to be used to trial smart city propositions. And as was mentioned earlier by Joan, all of this is in the framework of involving academia, business, local government and citizens. Now the Smart DCU campus, if you're not familiar with it, is 365 days of the year is a microcosm of a smart city. There's accommodation, banking, buses, car parking, footpaths, everything you find in a city. And it's all one little compact area that we can trial things very, very easily. Now, when you talk about a university campus, it's an ecosystem as well. And this ecosystem touches many other areas. So one of them is DCU goes straight into the Insight Centre for Data Analytics. Now, this is the biggest of its type in Europe. Absolutely phenomenal. The budget envelope over 6 years is €150 million. So the point I'm getting here is, if you ever have a data analytics challenge for research, this centre has no difficulty, no challenge is too big for it. It's based across 4 geographical areas across Ireland. Specialises in artificial intelligence, machine learning, you name it, they have the expertise in-house. Now, I mentioned Croke Park. So DCU has been working with Croke Park for quite a while now. So one of the themes was abnormal crowd behaviour patterns. So in other words, to improve the safety of the 83,000 people, if you can actually use computer vision to detect unusual crowd behaviour patterns in advance of becoming a problem, you're saving yourself a bigger problem. So shall we say people are now moving around something on the ground, something is spilt. If you can detect that quickly, get the spill cleaned up before somebody slips and makes the problem worse. So abnormal crowd behaviour patterns is one of our research themes with them. Another one is we installed microphones. Now, this was used to enhance the fan experience. So when the goal was scored, you could then show what audience fans cheered the loudest for their team. And this was a great example of enhancing the fan experience in an entertainment zone. But the real learning curve here was actually the installation of hardware, connectivity of wirelessly, wired, bring it to the edge, processing on the edge, and then building a dashboard in the cloud. This was an A to Z of working in a stadium. And a lot of unexpected issues happened in this. But that knowledge now how to implement in a stadium exists inside DCU, and it's unique. Croke Park is well known for its grass. And one of the things about the grass is every day of the year it has to grow. So they use grass grow lamps. So one project was actually using computer vision again, along with weather stations, to look at the pitch and see where the shadows are. Identify areas which needed high areas of grass growing. So even in the summer, you can get areas of the pitch because of the high stands that don't get enough sunlight. And you also have other parts of the pitch that have sufficient sunlight and don't benefit at all from extra sun lamps. So this is something, sustainability, reducing energy, maximizing return on investment. But the grass growing is only one part of it. Because you use these lamps, another part of DCU did some research and have come up with a new LED type technology. And it can be fine-tuned to actually make the grass grow or the root grow. So all of this at lower energy, more sustainable. Another project which avails of modern wireless networks would be NB-IoT. Would mean you can now put, for the very first time, well, for recent on 4G networks, you can put sensors deep underground, where normally you'd never pick up a mobile signal. Now you can have sensors underground. And these technologies are so well advanced, you could leave it there for 10 years without changing the battery. So there's amazing things happening at the moment with wireless technologies. Now, Alan earlier on would have talked about congestion. And the thing about in Dublin, we all know is the second worst city in Europe for congestion. People are wasting their time, they're sitting in their cars, they're wasting time, they're wasting fuel, increasing pollution, stress levels. And we all, it can't go on. And as Alan would have talked about, with 2% of the private vehicles, you could actually look after all mobility. Now, this assumes a nirvana land of where everybody shares their mobility with everyone, which probably is easier to say than do. Now, in other countries, they've legalized the use of e-scooters to actually assist in this shared mobility world. Because you won't have the Lewis line, the Dart, or the bus at your hall door, but you may, for the first kilometre, require something to bring you to that infrastructure, and for the last kilometre, bring you to where you're going. So we have the first kilometre issue and the last kilometre issue, and shared micro-mobility is a solution for that. However, when they implement it, like in Berlin, what happens is a lot of people do not care about how they use their scooters. So they can't maybe a designated area to park a scooter, but they could park it right in front of the door, anywhere. And this means an obstruction for pedestrians and a safety hazard for everybody. So these scooters have GPS on them, but the GPS is measured in meters. It's not accurate to know if it's at the right place, parked in the designated area, or else abandoned somewhere. We also have the issue that people ride them through pedestrianised areas with no regard for pedestrians. So to overcome these issues, DCU, in combination with DCU Alpha, are looking to implement a new technology. I'm going to do this on the campus. This new technology will have a higher level of location accuracy, something measured in centimetres, not metres. So for the first time, we can say they're parked correctly in the proper place, or they're parked incorrectly. Now, if they're parked incorrectly, you can tell the user you won't be able to use the scooter again. You can do certain corrective actions to make sure the scooter user will obey what you want them to do. Now, this improved location accuracy also means you have the ability to reduce the speed in certain areas. So you can geofence, let's say the mall out here, and say, if you go in there, you must reduce your speed. So with the granularity of this, you now, for the first time, can implement that. If you use conventional GPS, you could be the far side of the mall before the system figured out, hang on, you're in an area which the geofencing should be going slow. So these technologies are actually making it safer, both for the rider and for pedestrians. This is only the start of this project with micromobility. The use of computer vision opens up even better possibilities. The first would be the automatic detection of pedestrians in front of a scooter and a reduction in speed to make sure nobody can travel fast behind pedestrians. This technology is in beta at the moment, this is not science fiction, this is science fact. You can also use this to verify the user is wearing a helmet. And computer vision is a technology which is endless opportunities. So I want to talk about the future now. And to put the future in context, I want to go back into the past. Now imagine you're back in 1840s America. So it's a really crude place. If you wanted to read at night time, you'd use a candle or an oil lamp. If you wanted to send a message, it went by horseback. If you wanted a picture of somebody, photography was extremely crude. It was mainly monochrome and very basic and very expensive. But a lot of people, if they wanted a photograph, got a portrait painter to paint a picture of the person that they loved. So you could make lots of money in those days if you were a good portrait artist. One of them was a chap called Samuel Morse. He had married, and his wife was pregnant on their third child when he got a very, very rich commission to paint a portrait. Unfortunately, he was 2 days away from his house, where off he went, and while he was there, he got a message from his father to say his wife was very, very sick. So he headed off, came home immediately, another 2 days horse ride, and to his absolute grief, his wife had just died. She'd been buried without him being there. He was obsessed with this and thrown into huge grief. But he decided to use the grief into a positive effect. So what he did was, he decided what he needed to do. And that was, the what was, enable a message to go quickly, immediately to anywhere you wanted it to go. So this was a what. This is his nirvana that he came up with. Then, and only then, did he try and figure out how to do it. Now don't forget, we're talking about an era when electricity only existed in universities. The electric light bulb before the commercial deployment was 40 years away. And this guy came up with a wish list, what he wanted to do, and then figured out how to do it. Now the answer was, using electric wires and Morse code, he was able to come up with this. So for every letter of the alphabet, you could use a short noise and a long noise, convert them to pulses, and then send them along a wire, and at the other end people could actually understand what was being transmitted. You could now send a message at the speed of light. The effect on the world was absolutely amazing. And you could even send money by using passwords. So he had done something which was absolutely amazing. Now this made him a lot of money, and he actually married again, and he lived happily ever after, and he died at a ripe old age. But in many ways, you could say the 1840s was the beginning of the internet. This was a protocol, how to communicate. So, now we are all extremely lucky. We take the internet for granted. And I think, it's there. So, but at the moment, in a city-centric, not a rural area, in city-centre areas, the internet is going to change. Oh boy, is it going to change. It's going to change so big, from the 1840s to now, in 30 years' time, it'll be the same jump in what's going to happen. And this is because recently a set of standards have been agreed. Now, I won't go into these standards, but they're technical standards. Now, a standard, you think, is agreed, so what? Well, once a standard is agreed, it means you can mass produce things. It means you can communicate with other things. You've got a standard, and it takes off. And these new standards are so phenomenally different. They're availing of the latest types of technology, and they're going to change your world forever. So the first thing is the arrival of low-cost sensors. So what you think of a sensor now could be less than a cent. It could be self-powering off radio waves. It could be deep underground for lasting 10 years. But you're going to have a range of sensors so cheap, so ubiquitous, that this is where the Internet of Things, everything will be connected. You also have the arrival of wireless networks, which will be so fast, it makes your brain seem slow. So if your eyesight to your back of your brain takes 13 milliseconds, we're looking at wireless networks with a latency or delay of 1 millisecond. So faster than you can think. So this opens up whole new possibilities for the tactile internet, where you will absolutely think you're touching something and looking at it, and you think you're there, but you're not. So the whole new world is going to open up. Now, all of these technologies are going to combine to undermine every single business model you have, because what you're doing today is limited. So the limitations of the internet in cities will absolutely evaporate. It will enable you to do anything you want. So what I'm suggesting here is, if you, in future as we go forward, everything will be modular. If you have a proposition, I suggest first you figure out what you want it to do, what is their nirvana of what this proposition should be? Be like Morse. Then, and only then, would you look at how you actually implement it. Because if you let your knowledge of technology get in the way of where you want it to be, you will never think of what the nirvana should be. Morse didn't do that. Learn his lesson. Now you have, if you want to do something and needs to communicate, it's a module. You need a special sensor, it's a module. You need it to do a special thing in software, there's libraries built. There's so many things you can do things. And if you then find there's still some piece missing of this jigsaw puzzle, it will be there soon, because everything is moving so quickly. So the message I'm saying here today is, if you have a smart city proposition, think it through to the nirvana level. Don't let it be inhibited in any way possible. And then we can see how we could implement it. And with Smart DCU, it's only one of the many smart districts. There could be, depending on what the proposition is, there could be a district which suits it better. But in Smart DCU, you've got, as like the scooter project, you can implement really fast in a controlled environment. So in wrap up, Smart DCU wants to make Dublin smarter, but also wants to make cities all over the world smarter as well. Thank you.